background that is also a little bit like a literature review, but we don't fuss so much about it unless you tell us that you're a student. Then we definitely want to see your chapter 2. So it's the idea behind your study. It should describe the idea, and it should talk about the context of the problem that you have. So it gives a history of the problem, and it should include the local context, its relevance based on literature and significance. And not if we need bread. So it's very hard. Yeah. Then you look at the justification. And the justification is the gap. So why? Why is it important to know about diabetes? Why is it important to know about heart failure? Yes?
How do you go around
background? So at Cambridge we had at one time when we were showing our scientists how to write proposals, when we had sort of like an SOP, we would actually tell them how many words it should be. Okay? We'd actually tell them, but then we stopped doing that because it depends on the subjects. And there are some subjects that are not has been known about it, and there are some subjects not so much is known about it, so there's not so much you can say because it's something fairly new. So for both of those, if you're going to tell people right a background on HIV, something in HIV, there's a lot to say. So if you tell people they're going to have maybe let's say 1,000 words or 2,000 words, they can feel it. But there's some things which are too new, like when COVID first came, it was too new. Backgrounds were like this. Yeah, what were you going to say? What were you going to say, right? There's not much to say about it. So I don't like giving a name, a number of words for how much a background should be, but I will say the background has to give you the context of the problem. When you're talking about the problem, you need to give us the context of that problem, the extent of that problem, and what other people have said about that problem. Yes, that kind of thing. Yeah. So I can't give you exact numbers. We used to do it, but we stopped doing it. Yeah. Study justification just tells you why. Why are we doing this study? Why is it important? What is it going to help us with? It also goes towards social value. Now, because you have so many students, you're probably going to also do literature review, and that gives you the why of the study. And also, where you had Professor Nang talk about theories. Like in qualitative, there are a lot of theories that you're going to embed your study in a certain theory, you know. So you talk about a conceptual framework, and usually it's shown in a picture, so that this affects, they are variables, they are the independent ones, they are the dependent ones. And I'm just going over this because this is not a course in research methodology, and you show how everything connects to each other, so that it starts making sense, especially from an academic point of view. So for students who are doing master's, PhD, if they don't have a conceptual framework, they might be a problem. Yes, they may be a problem, but for, as I said in Cambridge, we hardly get to see chapter 2, unless it's students, and we don't get too many students.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, go ahead.
Does the conceptual framework by necessity come from the literature, or is it the work of the author to craft one that explains the way they are seeing or describing what they've read in their chapter 2?
That's a good question. Prof, can you want to take that? May I probably say that there are sometimes there are some guys like Cresswell who have said so many things, and people wonder if you're doing something like this, why aren't you referring to him? But at the same time, you can also say, yes, he's done this, but mine is a little bit different, and it's the way I see it will go. But maybe Prof, you can speak into that.
So, again, I think the differentiation that she has made around any scholar who's doing research business, be a student, and also the discipline matters. So there's some disciplines that insist that you pick a framework that exists already and you use it to position your work. Let's say you're looking at general, whatever theoretical, maybe it's something about behavioral intentions, there's a health modeling, theory to action, you name it. There's so many theories already in place. So they encourage that idea about building your work off the shoulders of giants. Pick a theory that's already there and see how that fits in. But there's also the one where now after the systematic reviews and everything, you've seen what's already been done and what you want to do, you can propose how you think your independent variables and dependent variables and any other contextual factors are going to relate, and that's where we encourage the scholar to just do their own diagram, how they think things will look like, and it's always in association with a specific objective. So it guides you even when you're thinking about the measures to put in the tools in your chapter 3, and even how you do the analysis. Yeah. So it's very discipline specific. Like if you come from an anthropology school or sociology or nursing school, sometimes you find your faculty have a certain bias. And so it's not a bad thing, it's not a good thing either, but I think it's good to know that whether you have it in a frame or not, you need to have that earlier research, earlier evidence, driving what it is that you're proposing as a dot. Remember I was saying the dot you want to add to the knowledge. But some will faster, they want that frame there, not just a prose where you're explaining, where you're seeing the gap and what your variables will look like.
Okay. Objectives, the only thing I want to say about, yes?
I have a question.
Sure.
Like for us students, I'm asking this for us. Like if I choose to include conceptual framework in the literature part, is there any harm to still talk about my dependent and independent variables in my methodology part? Or I can choose maybe to go with the framework, the conceptual framework in literature part, and omit the variables in the methodology part, or omit the part of conceptual framework in the literature part, and go with my variables in methodology part.
No, it's not if and other, if they go together. I wish I could go, but if let's say, which framework shall we take? Let's say quite often many frameworks you will have like the socio-economic characteristics, and then the behavior is here, and then the outcome here, whatever. So the frame is there, but the variables are what you want to use. So you could allude to what exists in that particular framework that is guiding you. Then you say, and in my study, these are the variables. Maybe they had like 10, socio-demographic factors in there. You only want 4. So now you customize it to your own work, and you can end up drawing, if you wish, a smaller version of that particular framework. So it's not that they're separate. Does that make sense? Yeah. But you're showing the reader, I'm building my work off this framework that had been used on this behavioral intervention or intention kind of study. But in my study, I just want to see, how maybe variable 1, 2, 3, affect the decision by this patient to behave a certain way or the other. Yeah, you customize it. Thank you.
So if I understand the response very well, you can still have your framework and then also in your methodology still mention. Is that right?
Usually your study will have one framework. It can be actually, but you can combine more than one to develop your own. Sometimes you find a framework is lacking something of interest to you, or that can actually be what your project is proposing to add. For instance, we used the health belief model to study barriers and facilitators towards people living with hypertension going for care. So we're wondering if, the health belief model is a common one, severity, or the other things, cues to action, all those things. But when we finished, we added a component, and actually we published that paper. I can share it to show how we used a model, and then we added an element to that particular model through our project. So you will be using it in your chapter 2 or 3, because now she says sometimes chapter 2 is optional. When you're giving the background, you will have it there, and when you're doing your chapter, your methodology, you will be alluding to it, because you use it sometimes to even frame how you organize your analysis. If it's a qualitative study, for instance, the themes that will have been in that model may be the themes you use to even develop the a priori coding book. It will help you with the tools to know the variables to put in the survey or in the question guide, whatever you're using. So in the end, your analysis will, you can end up saying, in Chogoria, there's an additional variable bucket of variables that are important when someone is making a decision to come for care for heart failure. And so you may want to add to that model now, and you will be suggesting that in your manuscript. Yeah. So you don't leave it. It's not that you have a conceptual framework for the analysis and fieldwork part, and another one for writing the background. It's the one in the background that you're using to position you. It's like a springboard.
Can we say that conceptual framework is an abstract of the methodology? Can we say like that? Because if we have the variables, and if we can also say that we are including the analysis part, what we are doing. The way I understand it is it's kind of hypothesis which we want to check. So it will have both the dependent and independent variables, and including the methodology.
It's another way of thinking of it.
I will say this. Clinically training, I never thought about conceptual framework. It wasn't until faculty at the university, where we were doing thesis supervisions and things, that I became more aware of it. And I actually love them now. And I think that it's something that, because all of our students are doctors, clinically trained, again, they come in fairly weak on the conceptual framework idea. Because they're used to analyzing, Pico Rambo or whatever, but we don't spend the time thinking about how does the industry think about these issues, right? So then, because I can sometimes be a big picture thinker, it's like accessing that part of my brain, but now applying it to the particular study. So before you even think the details of your study, you just think, who are the actors in the play, or what are the elements in this person's decision? How do I organize them? Just all state it, and let's all agree that this is how I'm thinking about a person. This is how I'm thinking about the way they make a decision, or a community and how they make their decision. Now, I'm going to research something specific, but just let's all agree this is what I'm going to use as my starting point. Now I'm going to analyze whether or not this policy changes this community's behavior, or something like that. It's like laying the groundwork so that we're all in agreement. That's the way I think about it. I don't know if you guys think about it in that same way, because it's not, I'm new to the field. So I think it's just like establishing which is the starting point that you're using.
It's very silent. Okay.
Because I'm pulling up my slides on that.
Okay.
I think I
You're
will
pulling.
say something about it later,
Okay.
because it's been asked.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be good. I would say that having done several thesis supervisions, it's a sticking